Let's go! Washington Commanders fans are trying to build this live stream into something every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central. We break down JAYDEN freaking Daniels and this Washington football team. Now, first thing, I miss the name Washington football team. I thought it was so freaking cool. It reminded me of these soccer days or just my soccer background where teams don't have nicknames. Well, they kind of have like nicknames, but it's not like in the official title. It's just Liverpool Football Club, Washington football team. Let's go. Let's freaking go, Commanders, as you get ready to play the Dallas Cowboys. So, as we always do on Wednesday, we start off with the injury report. I say always. We're still in the early stages of the live stream. I really appreciate everyone that shows love to the film studies, Dallas Cowboys injury status, and as you can see, this is a banged up team. Brandon Cooks, limited participant. CeeDee Lamb was also questionable. I doubt he misses this weekend. Marquise Bell, Marshawn Nealon, some more role players mixed in there. But Dak Prescott, of course, is out. And you get to Zach Martin, who is banged up, the really good offensive lineman, and then Tyler Smith. And someone else that's very interesting, I also heard some things about Tyler Guyton as far as his injury status. The rookie who has not been good this year for the Cowboys. Then we go to the Commanders and their injury report. Nick Bellori, more of a special teamer, and Zach Ertz got the day off just for rest, which makes sense. Will we see Marshawn Lattimore this weekend? Clinton Farrell, Noah Ibaka, and Ben Sinnott limited. Good to see Dorrance Armstrong, Brandon Coleman, the rookie, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, full participant in practice, and Jordan McGee. So, obviously, if I were looking at this from a Commander standpoint, you are still winning the injury battle. Now, I will also say, I do not think JAYDEN is fully healthy. I also think one thing working against JAYDEN is, and I understand, I'm such a JAYDEN homer. I'm always upfront about that. But, and this is obviously very cliche. Every player likes to consider themselves tough. But JAYDEN Daniels really is a tough son of a gun. He took some hits at LSU. I have no idea how he got back up. His face got cut in a game, kept playing. The guy is just so tough. He doesn't like to miss games. He just doesn't. So if he is at 0.0003% of health, he's going to try and tough it out and play. That's just who he is. He's blue collar. And I doubt he sits in any game ever. Like, until I actually see JAYDEN Daniels just sit out of a game, I'm just not going to believe it. Now, I want to talk a few film study things as we get ready for this game this weekend. And the biggest is, of course, the Washington football team pass protection and overall offensive line. Okay? Now, let's be clear. Everyone thought going into the season that the Commanders' offensive line was going to be not good. And that makes a lot of sense considering they're so young. And with the injuries, the disaster on this team has been the rookie out of TCU, who just can't seem to hold up at left tackle. It really hurt in that Giants game earlier this year. You're still able to win it. And I'm not talking about one on November 3rd. I'm talking about the one on September 15th. And you weren't able to score any touchdowns in that game. Or should I say New York wasn't able to score any touchdowns? Well, no. Same thing is true. The Commanders weren't able to score any touchdowns. And now you get to Dallas, obviously Micah Parsons and all of that. But Dallas's pass rush has mostly been this year because of the injury. So I really do think the Commanders are going to roll. Now, there's always the fear of playing a team after a blowout, but Dallas has had the most blowout losses arguably in the NFL this season. especially relative to expectation. So I feel pretty good about the Commanders just bowling over the Dallas Cowboys this Saturday. Now, obviously, there are plenty of Cowboys fans that are begging for Cooper Rush to not be the starter. And I get that. I totally do. Next thing here, I did a film study earlier today on the Drake May New England Patriots. And look, it's going to be hard for Jayden Daniels to hold off Bo Nix for Rookie of the Year. I think at this point, Jayden is the Rookie of the Year. You also have to worry about Brock Bowers of the Las Vegas Raiders. But I do think, for me, the Rookie of the Year should be Jayden Daniels. He has a defensive coach. Bo Nix has Sean Payton. Bo Nix, I think, up to this point, has played an easier schedule. I think Jayden has done more with less. So, take it for what it's worth. I do think, and I really do mean it, I think Jayden Daniels is still the Rookie of the Year. All of my bias aside, I think he should take home the award, especially if they make the playoffs and if they win a playoff game like C.J. Stroud did last year. Now, we take a look at the poll question. Who should win the NFC East, or who will win the NFC East? Eagles at 50%, Commanders at 50%. All right. The next thing I wanted to get into is the Marshawn Lattimore situation. They are obviously easing him into the team. He gets traded and was a big part of the New Orleans Saints. One of my favorite Saints defensive players ever. And now you bring him over to the Commanders, and he's not played yet. So you traded for an injured player. But then again, if you had the long term in mind, you don't want him to re-injure himself. You got him for the playoffs. And last week versus a very good Philadelphia Eagle wide receiver room, you would have loved to have him in that game, but you didn't. So now you're wondering if you're going to get him for CeeDee Lamb and the Dallas Cowboys if CeeDee Lamb indeed plays. I think the Commanders are playing it fine with Marshawn Lattimore. This is who he is. When he's healthy, he's really good. But right now, he's not healthy. But I do think Lattimore is going to be motivated playing on a good team again. And I think you'll get good Marshawn Lattimore when he actually is fully available for this team. So there you go. Now, if you have any questions, if you're watching, please feel free to fire them in. I kind of want to get to some Dan Quinn audio I have pulled up here. I might not. I do have another engagement at 7:30 tonight that I have to go do. But I wanted to check in with you guys to also share that I appreciate all the love you guys have been giving me on the film studies that we do. Okay, the Commanders are by far the biggest film study supporters of the channel. Now, randomly, the Jaguars have supported me a lot. Trying out new teams, meeting with new fan bases. And I really appreciate each and every one of you. I really do. I really do. It's tough doing the solo thing, not with any big network. So every single one of you, I appreciate you even more. I have no safety net. I only have you guys. Okay. Now, I want to get into and look, I'm not going to lecture you about Pro Football Focus grading. I am very pro Football Focus. All right. I do think their overall service is good. And so far this season, they had the Washington Commanders special teams graded pretty well, which obviously is up to interpretation for a lot of you. But it makes sense. The highest graded player on the team is JAYDEN Daniels. The second highest graded player on the team is Marcus Mariota, but there's no snap minimum there. But I want to go through a few players and their grades up to this point in the season and basically give you my thoughts on how I feel about them moving forward. So, one thing I don't fully agree with when it comes to the offensive grading here is I'm not sure if Brian Robinson has been significantly better than Austin Ekeler. So Brian Robinson's overall grade is 80.6 on 283 snaps, and Austin Ekeler on 329 snaps is at 69.7. I think their play overall has been a little bit more even. Austin Eckler's pass blocking grade is what really brings him down. B-Rob is at 53.7 and Eckler's at 25.9. But I would say they've been about even in terms of their effectiveness. Obviously, B-Rob is a younger player. He's probably the overall better player of the two. And both, of course, have missed time. B-Rob, of course, has played 8 out of the 11 games, and Austin Ekeler has played 10 of the 11. But, of course, Eckler's been taken out of some games, right? He got hurt in that pivotal Cincinnati game early in the season. I do think the guard-center-guard combo of Cosmi, Biotish, and Allegretti has been graded pretty fairly. They're all graded pretty equally at 67.1, 65.6, 64.5. Do you agree? And whether you're watching this live or down the road, do you agree with that score? Now, where to me it gets interesting is Brandon Coleman of the TCU Horned Frogs, who I've been critical of. He's a rookie. I'm a little shocked that his grade is 60.7. I thought it was going to be worse than that, and 60.7 obviously isn't that great. But that excites me that it's a little bit better than what I thought it was going to be. And another rookie that they have graded pretty low is Luke McCaffrey at 54.3. And what really brings him down is his run blocking grade, which makes sense. Not many rookie wide receivers are going to be good blockers at this point in their careers. Jeffrey, what's good, man? You ask me any Commanders question on the planet, and I'll answer it the best I can. And hell, I'll go ahead and put the grades on the screen. I'm not normally fond of putting like paywall content up, but I think Pro Football Focus will be okay. I don't have 1,000 people in here or anything like that. So you can see the full grades here for the Commanders offense. Now, on my film studies, I'm more so focused on the Commanders offense, but starting next week, I will do some Commanders defensive film studies. All right, we'll do one next week, even though it is probably going to be one of the more flawed defensive games to evaluate going up against the non-Dak Prescott Dallas Cowboys team. I want to get to the defensive side of the football because obviously I don't focus on that side of the football as much as probably you do. Bobby Wagner, the highest graded player. I know it says Nick Bellori, who's hurt right now, but he's more of a special teamer anyway. Okay. And let's go down here. This to me was the one that I disagreed with the most. All right. It could just be me, but Frankie Louvu has been better than 65.5. Okay, tackling grade is really low, but the pass rush grade, of course, is really good. And I just think there is so much more value in being an elite pass rusher than it is like some of the other stuff that they grade, especially with Louvu. One of the more interesting grades is Mike Sanders. He was an older rookie coming in from Michigan. 599 snaps on the season, a 68 grade. That's pretty good. It's pretty daggum good. No shock that Jeremy Chin's a stud. That anyone that's watched the Commanders play, you can clearly see. But where a lot of you want to discuss with the Commanders are the corner grades. Noah, the former rookie at Auburn, switch to that number 1 jersey. If you're going to switch to Uno, you got to, produce, and he's not done that. 49.9 grade at corner. Emmanuel Forbes, disastrous career up to this point, which I didn't think. Emmanuel Forbes is one of the best SEC corners I've ever seen. The funny thing is a guy that actually takes the most blame and the most criticism, Benjamin St-Juste. He's not only played the most snaps, he also has the highest grade of any corner not named Sanders, who's more of a nickel, but he's also had to play some outside corner. We all remember that Jamar Chase rep early in the season, but the secondary, of course, has been a massive problem. Percy Butler, of course, has had his issues. So I think for the most part, these defensive grades are fair. It's about where I would see it. For me, though, I might have Chin and Wagner flip, but Bobby Wagner has been not only a really good player, but a good leader for this team. Okay? Let's go to Jeffrey. Would I be interested in bringing in Marquise Brown, Hollywood, in free agency on I don't know what a private year would be, but yeah, sure. I like Hollywood Brown. He's not going to be elite, but I do think he's a good wide receiver 2. Potential wide receiver 3. I think the Commanders are definitely going to be in the draft for one of these big wide receivers this next year. Prove it year. Yeah, I could see it. But I could also see, as crazy as this sounds, I could also see the Chiefs trying it again with Hollywood. Even though it's been a disaster with the injury, him getting injured the first play. Let's go to L. L, good to see you. You and Jeffrey. I think I called you Jeremy a minute ago. I'm so sorry, Jeffrey. So I'm sorry. Look at L out on the town. You go, L. Do I think defenses have figured out Cliff Kingsbury's schemes? All right. So, L, I want to start off with something that I feel is important for everyone to know. I did not like the Cliff Kingsbury hire to be JAYDEN Daniels' offensive coordinator. All right. And I'm always very open about where my allegiances lie. Was I a Commanders, Washington, HTTR fan growing up? Kinda. All right. I have a lot of family that lives in D.C. I used to live in D.C. They've always been my second NFC team behind my Saints. So still, I'm a bigger Jayden fan than I am a fan of the Commanders. So this offensive coordinator hire was huge. Like I was like, I trust Jayden. I know he's going to be great, but the OC really does matter. And I wasn't the biggest Cliff guy. So he goes, from the NFL with the Cardinals and then has the year with USC. And he's been really good this season. He's been really, really, really good. I feel he's been very innovative in some of his screens. I felt the Cardinals game in particular, he emptied his bag for a lot of reasons. Obviously, there was a lot of baggage in that game for him. I feel also, what I've really enjoyed from him is his use of overloading one side of the line of scrimmage, flipping an offensive lineman from one side to the other. I love that. But do I think defenses have figured out a scheme? Well, the first thing, from a film study perspective, when I start wondering if a scheme is being figured out, is when the offense is struggling. Is it due to the guys up front getting their asses kicked? And in the Eagles game, the guys in the trenches got their asses kicked. So if that is happening, it doesn't matter what you do. Now, if you're getting beat, you can work around it. But if you're getting your ass kicked, there's nothing you could do about it. There's next to nothing. Now, Jayden gives you a little bit more wiggle room because he's really good at working around that. He had to work around some of that at LSU and at Arizona State. But in the Eagles game in particular, they got their asses kicked in the trenches on a short week on the road in a division game after a weird Pittsburgh game. So what about the game before versus Pittsburgh? Well, offensively, you were fine. Now, did you get your butts kicked in the trenches again? Kinda. I don't think it was as bad as it was in the Eagles game. But if you were to look at the Commander schedule based on how everyone has played on their schedule up to this point in the season, the Commanders just had to play the two best defenses versus Jayden's strengths in the NFL. These were the two best defenses because they have smart defensive linemen, they have very explosive defensive linemen and edges, and you have to play both of them within a 4-day period. And the truth is, the Steelers' victory versus the Commanders was one of the flukiest victories of the NFL season. It was one of the flukiest. So, am I worried about, and I'm sure Elle and everyone watching this has seen the stat being thrown around that at the end of seasons, Cliff Kingsbury does fall off a cliff, and that's been, pun intended, literally something that has happened at pretty much every stop over the past decade. But I'm not ready to punt on it just yet. I'm not ready to say if defenses have figured it out. Now, you should worry if the Dallas freaking Cowboys stop you this weekend. The Dallas stinking Cowboys, who've not stopped a nosebleed. If you see the Dallas freaking Cowboys running up and down the field on you on offense, and more alarmingly, defensively, stop you, then yes, you should be you should be very worried. You should be very worried. Because the Zimmer defense has been a disaster. The McCarthy offense has been a disaster. Okay? So, also to follow up, I am from Baton Rouge originally. I'm not from D.C., but I did live in D.C. So, and you're an LSU fan, good. And you're now in BR, cool. I go to BR all the time. It's a home away from home for me. And check out my Power Hour LSU channel. That's how I started. It's my biggest channel. I actually just got done doing my Power Hour LSU show. And thanks to you, people like all of you, I had a pretty fun business meeting yesterday with a new partner here on Power Hour NFL, and you guys are going to love it. Okay? So thank you, El, for your question. Let's keep it going. Jamaican bobsledder. Eagles and Steelers used different coverages. Steelers played man, and the Eagles played zone. Partially true. Here's how I'm going to do Jamaican bobsledder. Because I'm kind of the film guy. There is one guy in all of football in defensive film study circles that people have argued about over the past couple of seasons, and it's the Eagles defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio. I'm telling you, the film nerds and coaches, they get vicious when it comes to Fangio because people feel he gets too much credit for how modern defenses are played. The guy is really freaking good. I think he's the best in the NFL outside of Spags. I do. Okay. And, you know, that was a tough matchup for Jayden Fangio. Also, one other thing. Sometimes some guys just have your number. And Elle knows this being an LSU fan. Jalen Carter, his most viral play of his career happened against Jayden Daniels. So there's just some guys who are also elite, and when you match up against them, they just have your number. And Jalen Carter threw 2 games in. The dude, like, that was his best game as a pro. And it's hard. The week before you have Cam Hayward, who's playing unbelievable right now. And then you have Jalen Carter. Ugh. But, yeah, I want to get on here as well because we're doing live streams every Monday at 7 p.m. Central. I know it's different than my film study, but moving forward, there will be more film breakdowns that I'll do on the live stream. That'll be previews for the game. I didn't do any this week because I had to travel yesterday for a business meeting. Okay? And by the way, any one of you can hit me up on social media at Carter the Power. Message me, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. I want to get to know every one of you on this live stream, including Jamaican Bobsledder. I love that name. Okay. I want to let you guys in on my background. All right. And it'll be brief because I know you guys just want to talk Commanders. So I went to LSU and I got involved in student media and I did radio for a long time. Then when I was at LSU, did radio, did TV, did some ESPNU stuff as like a student, dropped out and took a internship job at SiriusXM satellite radio in DC. So I moved up there, lived in my own basement, and loved it. I love DC. I'm addicted to it. It's literally one of my favorite places on earth. Lived in Capitol Heights. I loved it. Freaking loved it. Capitol Heights, Gallatin, Red Line. Let's go. Let's go. And man, I loved working at SXM and came back, did radio, and I've always done like kind of film studies. And the first like big YouTube channel that I had was Power Hour LSU, and then Power Hour SEC, and now with Power Hour NFL. And I freaking love the Commanders. I do. And, I do. Now, am I the biggest Commanders fan in my family? No. I don't know if I could fully label myself a Commanders fan, though. But if Jayden's, I'm going to be a fan wherever Jayden is. So if Jayden was a Cowboy, I will never admit that I would be a Cowboy fan. Don't like them. But there you go. The Commanders' defense just got worn down. End of story. Let's move on and get better. Yeah, so this has been my favorite thing about this season of football with Jayden Daniels. So if you go back and look at his Arizona State days, while he was at Arizona State, his teams were actually really good. Like Herm Edwards is just their coach, and he sucked. Antonio Pierce was also on that staff. And that was just a toxic place. But they had really good players. He had Ricky Pearsall, who's obviously really good. He had Brandon Ayuk for a season. He had Rachaad White his whole career. So those Arizona State offenses were loaded. Then he goes to LSU, and he had even better supporting casts. Kayshawn, who's a good receiver for New England, even though Kayshawn sucked his final year at LSU with Jayden. Then he had Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, 2 first-round tackles in this upcoming draft. And those defenses were good that he had the first year. And then the second year, obviously, his defense sucked, but they had a lot of talent, and his offense was still loaded. So this, especially relative to competition, when you take a look at the overall Commanders roster, yes, this is Jayden Daniels on a rookie deal, but this is probably the least amount of talent that he's played with. Seriously. Like, I cannot repeat this enough. Every single offensive line, ranking had the Commanders' offensive line in the bottom 5. Has it shown up at times? Yeah, but it's shown up with a rookie at a TCU. And even with Tyler Biadasz, they did not have the Commanders' offensive line ranked that high. I don't think anybody would have the Commanders as a top 10 wide receiver core in the NFL. I don't know if they're top 20 right now. Yeah, Scary Terry's good, but if you were to rank NFL number 1 wide receivers, is Terry McLaurin a top 5 number 1 wide receiver? Probably not. Is he a top 10 number 1 wide receiver? Probably in that range. And Zach Ertz is playing some of the best ball of his career. So the thing that's really excited me about Jayden is too much in the pre-draft process, people mention that the supporting cast that he had at LSU is what lifted him up, when in many ways it was the opposite. He lifted them up too. And what he's done with this team is nothing short of amazing. Okay? And there's so many Jayden stories that I could share during his time at LSU. He was one of those 5 a.m., 6 a.m. guys. I have a lot of stories told to me about from Jayden's inner circle about things that he had to overcome at Arizona State, and it was a lot. So, I'm not shocked that he's been this good. I thought he would be this good as a rookie. I didn't see that Bengals game coming. But there you go. Did I see that the Browns lost? I know they play tomorrow. You're Travis Hunter guy? I love it. But you're all right, Rod. But I say that because if your roster is thin, you are you're in trouble when injuries happen. But literally, if I have no super biases towards the Commanders, I would say before the Marshawn Lattimore trade, it was a bottom 10 secondary. I would say going into the season, it was a bottom 10 pass rush. I would say going into the season, experts would say it's a bottom 10 offensive line, bottom 10 receiver core. Obviously, I'm a big B-Rob guy, and I'm a big Eckler guy. And look at where you are with this quarterback, this special quarterback. It's insane. It's insane. Let's go. DC all day, every day. Love it. Reason I asked is because Jameis Winston had probably my Saints, yeah. My Hoodats. Well, all right. Next few minutes, I'll answer as many as I possibly can. If you have a question and you don't, it's not been answered yet, you let me know. And under this, it might not turn into anything. Yeah, it might just be a film study thing. But I want the Commanders to turn into a live stream. That's why, my college live streams are bigger. I don't mind doing this for 2 people. I don't, because I have so much gratitude for you guys that watch every single film study. I do. If you have any comments on what you would like to see film-wise, let me know as well. I will be doing more Commanders defensive studies too, but you will get every single week a Commanders offensive film study. And the single most important thing to do is like it, subscribe, and watch all the way through. Let me ask you this. I mean, what is the best, like, and I know this is like, this, okay. We'll do this for next week. Give me your best DC restaurant. There's a place, there's a place called Saku Ramen that I went to once. Still the best ramen I've ever had in my life. In my life. Denny's. Let's go. That was a grand slam response. All right, y'all. We'll see you after the game this weekend. Let's go.